Well, hey everybody, welcome. So thankful that you guys are here, and thankful for those joining us online, and we may pick up a few more folks online as time goes on. But first, so thankful that you guys chose to join us tonight, and I'm going to open us in prayer, and we're going to jump in. So welcome to Vision Night 2020 as we look ahead to 2021. All right, let's pray together. Father, it's good for us to just be still and know that you are God. You're faithful. God, you've, as we learned this morning or talked about this morning, God, you have a plan, and your plan is glorious. God, it is good, it's for our good, for your glory. God, and we trust that, and even when we don't understand, we can trust your purpose. And so, God, we are just coming before you with anticipation, expectation of all that you're going to do. God, we're thankful for the ways you've worked in one of the hardest seasons that we've walked through and are continuing to walk through. God, we're just so thankful for your faithfulness. And we just pray tonight that as we share and as we share plans, that you would just align our heart with yours. God, that tonight wouldn't be about us and our agenda and our plans. God, it would be about bringing you glory and trusting you and following you. And so we just pray that as we, in our celebration and in our anticipation, God, that you just move in our hearts and with excitement for all that you've done and all that you're going to do. And we're just praying all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, what I want to do real quick is just give you an agenda, just an overview of just a couple things we're going to hit tonight, just so you know what to expect. And so hopefully this will go a little faster. I don't know if that works that way. It always seems to go longer than you think, but tonight we're going to break the rules. It's going to go faster. I just feel it. But the overview is we're going to talk about, again, talk about where we've been. We're going to look back, and we're going to look ahead, because originally I had wanted to sandwich the budget in the middle of that, but kind of rethought that. And so I want to share a little bit about what we're praying for, what we're thinking going into this new year before we talk about the budget, because that budget is a reflection of that heart. It's a reflection of what we're asking God to do. And so the hope is that you'll be a little more informed as we get to that part. So after I do a look back and then a look ahead, Bruce is going to come up and officially call us into business. Brian's going to come and share and walk us through the budget, which I assume everybody got copies of. Has everybody got copies of that? For those that are here? Okay. Okay, looks like we're good. And so Brian's going to walk through that. We'll have a time of questions from you guys and also from our online viewers. And so just bear with us. Those of you that are live, you might not have experienced this before when we do a live and digital event at the same time. And so it is a little different. Especially when we get questions from our online viewers. So I got the crew in the back, Michael, Kyle, and Greg. I'm so thankful for those guys, kind of making sure that the tech side is happening. And so as we get questions, they'll be kind of flagging me down, and questions will come up, and I've got to stop long enough and read those. And even the questions we get from the floor, Brian will actually up here during that time, or Bruce. You guys may just need to remember, you might have to repeat the question, because I don't know if we plan to do a mic deal. I don't think we did, because just trying to keep everybody safe. So that's how that worked. You just got to remember to repeat stuff. So, and then as we close, we're going to close in a special way tonight, and so I'm really looking forward to that. We are going to have. I'm just going to share some prayer points with you to be praying over, but then we're going to close out with a worship song, just worship together, and our hope is that this will really be kind of an anthem for us for 2021, and it'll make more sense when we get there at the end. So that's the plan. So let me jump in and let's celebrate some things. But I do want to be careful as I'm doing that. I want to be real transparent with you guys. I am not trying to make this year sound better than it is. It's been tough. Okay, it has been tough, and I think everybody knows that. And it's been, it's the toughest season of ministry for me personally. I think that's true for our staff, and it's just kind of an unprecedented time. But however, despite that, God has been so faithful, and so there are some great things that we want to take a few minutes and celebrate. And so that's what I want to do. So as we began this year, obviously we had no idea what was in store, but in February, our staff team was able to get off-site and have a staff planning retreat, and we had, it was just a great time as we projected over the year and got a lot of things organized and planned. And then COVID hit, and we threw that out the window. So COVID turned our world upside down. You guys know that. You've experienced that. And so, but we had to quickly regroup and kind of scramble and figure out what ministry was going to look like in the midst of just changing times and trying to keep up with that. And so we quickly formed a reopening team, and they were responsible for just kind of helping us navigate that, keep up with what we needed to be aware of, what we were learning, what the guidelines were, how we could safely gather, all of those things, because that was, just kind of a lot to learn and walk through. And so as we began to do that, we did join in our community with stay-at-home orders, and so we took some time there, and actually for the first time, and this is a hard thing to say because I know, and I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about it, but for the first time we did close the doors of the campus here in terms of worship. However, that did not keep the church from gathering, and so I want to be real careful that the church didn't stop gathering during that time. We just regrouped. We just changed how we did that and how we gathered for worship, and so that was definitely a first for us to navigate. We created a brand new. I'm so thankful to Kyle during that time. We were scrambling with just trying to figure out how to strengthen our digital presence and what this was going to look like, and so we quickly kind of created a family worship experience. That's what we called it, and it was just a way to engage the whole family, knowing that the whole family was at home, and so it's a little different than a typical Sunday morning. Some of you may remember that, or maybe you didn't even realize that, but it was a different shift in thinking and how we presented things, and really trying to keep in mind what worship at home was going to be like. But we just made a very concentrated effort to engage with our families, and so in the midst of a time where things were crazy, we were able to stay connected and move forward together and continue in worship. And so during that, our reopening team worked hard to kind of understand the changing tides of the culture and everything. And so we were able to reopen, thankfully, and reopen safely. Now, for some of you guys, again, and I'm going to probably hit this one right at the end, I know there are different categories of people. As I talk about COVID, we land all over the place on this. Some initially had no concerns whatsoever, and then maybe their opinion changed over time. Some of you were very cautious from the very beginning and have continued to be that way. Others, you kind of land somewhere in between. And as we talk about quarantining and we talk about masks, the bottom line is everybody is really tired of all of these things. But it's a reality. It is, for now, it is a reality that we are walking through, and we just want to be able to, we are a multi-generational church, and that is a praise, by the way. We are grateful for that, excited for that. But that also presents some challenges as we do gather. We have to, it's just different. It doesn't matter how one individual thinks about it or how one person looks at it. We have to think about the whole, and we really have to consider the whole body. And so it did create some challenges for us, but we were able to safely reopen. And the reason I mentioned that is because all over the country, that was not the case. There were some that opened and with different mentalities and different structures and had to immediately close. And so thankfully, and we give God the credit for that. I'm not trying to say we were, any smarter in that. I'm just saying that by the grace of God, through the steps that we took, thankfully, we didn't have to do that. And so we were grateful for that. And so that's a win. So as you can tell, I'm trying to help you see along the way all the things that we have to be thankful for. And so during that time, as crazy as it was, we brought on a brand new staff member in Greg. And so that was an answer to prayer. And that was in June. And so we were grateful for him coming on our staff team. And and Greg got, baptized by fire because he came on staff at one of the toughest seasons in ministry, but he jumped right in and very creative, and which was very helpful for us, because that's the next win that I want to mention. In the midst of all this, while we are trying to rethink church, rethink how to engage with families, our family ministry team did a phenomenal job of really scrambling and trying to think, how can we keep families equipped? How can we keep families engaged? How are we going to get them resourced? And so they were able to quickly transition to digital resources and make those available to families. And we had a lot of families that were grateful for that, took advantage of that. That's not their first choice, obviously. Nobody wants to say, hey, instead of meeting in person, let's all, do it online. But in spite of how difficult that was, we had a lot of families transition, a lot of families that were grateful, and it just allowed us to continue to equip them. And so I'm grateful for our family team in that. Greg also led his first VBS, and because of the challenging times, here's the crazy thing. You talk about a first. Not only did we have an on-campus VBS, but shortly after that, we had a digital VBS, and we had families participate in both. So that is a huge win. We had on campus, we had 102 kids and leaders registered over 3 nights. For our on-campus VBS. And so that was incredible. They were able to collect a lot of goods for sharing and caring, and just really focus. That was the theme and the heart of it, on who God is and just knowing and loving Him. And so it was just a great experience on campus. And then through the digital VBS, we had 40 families participate in that. So again, these were a lot of firsts for us and things we want to celebrate. And then our family team, I mentioned that they were working to provide digital resources. And so this is a more recent resource, but this is the best place to put it in terms of everything I'm celebrating. And so they also provided Advent in a box, Christmas in a box, as a resource for families to worship at home, but to focus during this Advent season. And we had 60 families participate in that. And we've got some great feedback from families who really have enjoyed those resources, and we're thankful that we put effort into that, because whether we like it or not, even though we were able to reopen, we were not able to we're still not able to gather our entire church body on campus. They're just those that are immune compromised. There are those that have a lot of different reasons. And so we don't get to, we don't have the luxury of saying, well, we're back, we're just going to roll with that. We care about every family that's a part of our church body. And I keep looking at y'all. I need to be looking at our digital audience as well. We care about all of you guys. And so we want to just make a concentrated effort to connect and engage. And we realize we're going to have to start thinking and evaluating and giving attention to both. And that is new for us, but we've been able to do that. And obviously we hope to grow in that and get better, but we've been able to make a significant effort in that. And so there were new discipleship resources for families that were made available online. And through all this, by the way, huge praise, our giving has been consistent. You guys are so generous and so faithful, and we do not take that lightly. God is honored in that. And so at a time where we were struggling to be consistent in our gathering, at a time where there was so much going on, we had several families, because we are, again, trying to leverage technology. And even those that are a little more conservative or a little more skeptical about digital means, we had several families switch over to digital giving to help stay consistent. And we are so thankful for that. And so we've been blessed in that and seen fruit from that. that. And so because of that, through our partnership with the International Mission Board and the cooperative program, and just I don't have a lot of time to go into this, but that supports missionaries all over the world. And basically, the bottom line is we tithe our tithe. So as you give, we give a percentage of everything that comes in goes out the doors to support the mission work. And that's in addition to our mission partners. Our mission partners are separate. And so because of your faithful giving, we were able to give this year, despite one of the hardest seasons, but to date, $57,316.64. And so we just celebrate and praise God for that. And then we, despite not being able to travel or host mission trips this year, we were able to continue on top of that, on top of the support of the International Mission Board, we were able to continue and faithfully support all of our mission partners through this and have been able to continue. And so, again, huge praise. And so we're grateful for that. And this this fall, we are. Well, actually, this wasn't just this fall. This goes back. I'm sorry. This goes back to the spring. Our Orphan Care ministry, I'm close to Orphan Care, just did a phenomenal job. They also had to kind of shift their thinking because they had what's called the Connect group, where they gather and equip foster families and come alongside them with resources and training. And obviously, all of this kind of changed that. And so they were able to move their training and their support online. And currently, they've continued. So they've not missed a beat. And they are currently able to minister and reach over 30 foster families in our area. So that's again, a huge praise. In fact, one of the emphasis they had, they wanted to be able to give Bibles to children who were in care for Christmas. Jesus Storybook Bible, if you're familiar with that, just an incredible thing. And so we had several families participate in that. In fact, I think this blew their goal. I think this is more than what they planned, wasn't it, Michael? Yeah. So they were able, they got 68 Jesus Storybook Bibles donated for kids in care. Is that not cool? I think we got a picture. Yeah, there it is. I mean, just amazing faithfulness. And so grateful for that. We held a diaper drive. Our missions team this year, they were hard at work in a strange time, just trying to figure out what our Christmas would look like, what our fall season would look like, what emphasis. There's a lot that has to go into that. It may sound simple, but there's a little bit that you have to think through. And so we're grateful to that team. And so we held a diaper drive on campus and collected. Oh, sorry, I didn't do all the math, so I'm going to give you two numbers. Sorry, you can, on your own, you can add these two together, okay? So we collected 37,059 diapers in our initial collection. And then after that, we had another 1,566 diapers come in. So yeah, just put those two together. That's our total. I'm not going to try to do that right now. But that is split between One More Child, or the Florida Baptist Children's Home, and Families First Network. Sorry, I had that backwards. And so we were able to support their ministry. So thankful for them. And so that was just an incredible gift. Meanwhile, you guys are so generous. Not only were you participating in that, giving to that, we also had our Operation Christmas Child emphasis, which we do every year. And so we really didn't know going into this year. The missions team was able to meet with Connie Plavnik, who leads that emphasis. And she's just incredible, has such a heart. But we didn't know what this year was going to bring. We didn't know what it was going to mean. We're like, what kind of goals should we have? And so we actually set the goal a little lower than we have years past. And so the goal was 300, to collect 300 boxes. And Samaritan's Purse offered a digital option this year. So that was new, to be able to build a box online. Well, that turned out to be just a great thing and a good opportunity. But together with that option and the on-campus giving, you guys brought in a total, first you brought in 361 boxes on campus. So blew the goal right out of the gate. But then through the online giving option, we were able to do 55 boxes. And so together, that's 416. I do have the math on that one. That's a total of 416 boxes. So just incredible at a time where we weren't sure how things were going to go. Then also, Children's Ministry had their first ever sock drive to partner with the Crestview Area Shelter for the Homeless. And the last number I had, which is crazy, this is still going, by the way. And so the last total I had was 300, wow, that'd be awesome. Greg's like, wow, that's news to me. 266 socks collected so far, pairs of socks. That's not just one sock, sorry. I wasn't doing like pastoral math there. Yeah, and so that's 266 pairs of socks collected so far for the Crestview Area Shelter for the Homeless. And then through our, and I forgot to ask you guys this, so we may not have this, but through our all-in giving from last year, which now is aptly named our annual Christmas offering, but through that giving last year, we were able to give some specific support to some key ministry partners or mission partnerships. One of those, I'm just highlighting one, but I don't think we have the video because I didn't check with you guys. That's my fault. But we were able to pay for the moving expenses for Kenny and Jocelyn Hancock as their family moved. And so I don't think we have the video of that. Okay. Well, the cool thing is they filmed a thank you to just kind of tell us, just to show us where they are and to celebrate that. And so that'll be coming. You'll get to see that later. So we were grateful for that. And then we had our first ever missions fair. And so very, very grateful again to our missions team for pulling that off. We had, in total, we had 12 mission partners represented, which is besides the International Mission Board, we had all of our partners represented there. And so maybe not all of them physically here, but all of them represented. And so we were so thankful for that. We launched a brand new military ministry team. This is huge, and we're really thankful. We're a strong military community, and so we're very grateful for the opportunity to come alongside our military families and to meet their unique needs. And we've got a team that is excited, ready, prayed up, and just looking forward to how they can be a part of that. And so, we throughout all of that, I've just got two more things. Bear with me, you guys are doing great. So we throughout all of that, we've continued to be able to connect. Believe it or not, we have continued to connect new families into the life of the church. Man, do you know what a praise that is? During this crazy time, we've had new families visiting, and we're all like, oh gosh, how's that going to go, And they've come back. They've not only come back, they have connected and actually been able to plug in. And so we are so, so grateful for that. That's a huge praise. And during this time, obviously, our discipleship has looked very different. And so thankful to Brian Chrisman, who's actually in the room, who helps coordinate that team, and Shay, who works kind of together to keep up with our groups. Obviously, it has been a very tough year. They have just tried to navigate a lot of new things. I said a lot of firsts. They've absolutely had a lot of firsts. But I wanted to celebrate, even though things have been hard, I wanted to hit a few highlights. Despite us having to transition very quickly as we were having to follow stay-at-home orders in the beginning, or as I shouldn't say half, we were choosing to do that. I want to be very careful in my language. That was something as a team we committed to do. And so as we were doing that, groups had to adapt to technology very quickly. And some of our older groups, we're just going to leave it at that, not identifying age necessarily, but who aren't super crazy about technology, dude, that's right. They led the way. Like they were some of the early adopters. And so it was awesome. They're like, hey, how's this work? Get us set up. We need to start Zoom and whatever we got to do, face chat, Twitter face, whatever we need, we're going to do it. They didn't say that. I'm kidding. But anyway, that's a win. They adapted. And then our deaf ministry, Some of you guys, we've been missing them dearly as far as on campus. And some of you may be going, well, how's that going? How's that working for them? They began posting teachings online, which was not something that they had done previously. But through leveraging technology during this time, they've connected, they're able to reach an average of 79 people a week. So yeah, that's a huge praise. And I actually didn't have numbers for you. I meant to tell you that earlier. But we've also, by increasing our digital, like trying to think through our digital presence, we've also added a lot of new folks that we've been able to connect with digitally. So sorry, I meant to say that earlier, as a whole church. But that was specifically our deaf ministry. And so this fall, even with the number of challenges we had, we were able to connect 25 new people into community. So excited about that because, I mean, it's a crazy time to step into discipleship and be like, are we meeting at a house? Are we on screen? What are we doing, But we had 25 new families that were able to connect. So we're excited about that. We had some new leaders step up to start new groups, one being a new college group. And so we're really grateful for that. At a time where we had some transition. I mean, I'm not going to lie or try to hide that. We had several groups that we had to transition. And what I mean by that is just leaders, because of everything going on and because all that just needed a season, needed to be able to step back. And so we did have some transition. But in the spite of that, even at a time where we were doing all of that, we've had new leaders step up as well. And so again, grateful for that. We'll be hosting a college live stream at the end of the month. And so that's a first for us. It's a new thing we're doing. It's a conference. And so we're looking forward to that. And then over the semester, over the semester, we had groups feed the sheriff's department, like take care of our law enforcement officers and all of that, minister to widows in the community, take care of some needs at Crestview Manor, minister to a local military family, bought zoo passes for local foster families. And so even though, again, it's a crazy season, we had our small groups and some adapted. I mentioned they adapted technology. They also adapted their format. Some groups started meeting when we were first starting to come back. They were meeting outside. They were figuring out how to spread out in a yard. And so just making a lot of effort to prioritize discipleship and then still keep our emphasis in the community. And I think I skipped. Did I skip that we were able to partner with the mayor's initiative to feed the community? I'm sorry. We were able to do that as well, and so that was early on. Yeah, so we were able to do that twice over the summer as a church, and so to join other churches, other volunteers in our area to help meet the needs of our community. So in spite of all the craziness, we never lost our heart for the community. Now, obviously, we've still got a long way to go. We want to get more creative, more involved, and so we are trying to figure that out. And so I don't want to make it sound like we got all that figured out. We don't. But we are excited and looking forward to putting emphasis into that. And so that's a look back. That's this past year. Obviously, there's more that I could have shared, but I just that's just some of the things that, in spite of a really difficult season, difficult time, we've been able to give attention to. And so I want to end with this. I want to just share a few words about just a look ahead before Bruce comes up to call us into business. And so we met a month ago, roughly, I think, as a staff. We, again, I told you, we're kind of trying to think through everything, and we realized that in light of everything that's happening, we've got to explore new ministry models. Like, we've got to start thinking outside of the box. We've got to start getting creative. Because one of the question that kind of led this will give you an idea of what we were wrestling with. This is the question that led our training time. Is your church leaning towards something new or just trying to survive its way back to normal? And as a staff, as we gathered, we wrestled with that question. We realized that despite some of the things we had offered, once we were able to reopen, we found ourselves just trying to survive our way back to normal. And the reality is, we're going to have a new normal. whether we like it or not. I know you guys have mixed feelings about that. I'm not trying to be all doomsday. I'm just saying that it's ministry's different. It just is. And going forward, we can either fight against that and try to do things the way we've always done it, or we can begin to shift and say, how are we going to connect with people? How are we going to engage people as things change? And so as a staff, we said it's not okay for us to just go to the status quo. Like and let me give you a one prime example of that. In terms of a ministry model, as a church, we don't necessarily do this intentionally, but we pretty much, even though we care deeply about our community and we are engaged in our community, overall, we have a come to us mentality. And what I mean by that is ministry happens in the walls of the church. People, we understand that, one of our core values is to live sent. And we get that, and we get that we want to make a difference in our community and reach people. But our default is we kind of just fall back into the church campus. We fall back to, whenever the doors are open, that's where ministry is going to happen. And we realize that we have got to break that come to us mentality if we're going to shift with the changing times and really be faithful to reach people. And so that's what's some of the new ministry model that we're exploring, because when it talks about surviving its way back to normal, here's what we had to face, that the world is different. And there's basically what we began to see is there's different categories, different groups of people. And as I tell you really quickly, you might find yourself in one of these groups. But there were those who, the moment we were able to reopen, were back. I mean, they were back. In fact, they really were frustrated that we closed to begin with, to be honest. And so the moment we were able to open again, they were back. They were good. Ready to get back into the swing of ministry. Several families fell into this category of almost ready. They were kind of figuring out what was happening. They had made some changes, and they were like, and as we would check in with them, some of them were even our volunteers, which, by the way, that's another thing that's going to be really challenging for us. But some of our volunteers were like, we're not quite ready. We just started hearing from some folks that we're almost ready, but we're not quite ready to be back on campus. And so they kind of fell in that category. And that includes those that are, also includes those that are immunocompromised and things along that nature where they really need some of the issues at large to change before they can feel comfortable coming back. And those are things out of our control. And so we understand that. And so we know we're going to need to walk alongside them creatively, differently. That's why we're leveraging technology, and those of you that are joining us online. And then the other category were those that are just disillusioned, for lack of a better word. And that's those that are frustrated just with the reaction of the church through all this and how the church has handled this. And I'm not just talking about Emmanuel, but Emmanuel as well as that just don't really agree with the steps that are taken, the process that's followed, the way, the concerns. I mentioned this in the last video that I shot, but the two big issues tend to be registration and masks. And people that fall into that category, they're like, we don't think you should have to register for church. We feel like that is totally, unbiblical. You're that's selling out the church. And they just have real strong concerns and convictions about that. And then as well with masks, for some it's legitimately, just not like that can cause breathing issues for them or concerns for them, or they just dislike it and don't feel like it's necessary. And so I know the reality, these are the categories that people tend to fall into. And then lastly, so those that are back, those that are kind of almost ready but still really waiting on some changes, and then those that are disillusioned with the church, that are kind of estranged from the church or stepped away right now. And those that breaks our heart, and we really want to figure out how we can re-engage and come alongside those families. And then the last, kind of with that, there's the unchurched. Those that weren't involved in church before COVID, much less after. And we still have a mission to lead people in their growing relationship with Christ. That hasn't changed. And so our heart for the community hasn't changed. We just got to figure out how to reach them in a time where now things are very different. And so, so with that being said, the vision is that we're going to have to think differently. We're going to have to change our ministry model. We are going to try to find a way to target all three groups. And again, this is not about pleasing everybody. And so I'll just confess and be transparent for a moment as your pastor. I used to say, I know that in ministry, our goal is not to please man, we're to please God. But that was a lot easier for me to say before I felt like I had ticked off the entire church. Like in this season of ministry, I feel like everybody's disappointed. Everybody's frustrated. Nobody's happy with what we're doing, and I feel like I'm constantly disappointing everyone. And I'll just be honest with you, as a staff, as your pastor, that's hard because I love our church family. And I'm very relational and I don't know, we're just trying to, that's why we formed a team, because we feel like we're better together, we're smarter together, and we got to figure this out. But there are real concerns that we have to navigate. And so anyway, our goal going forward is we're not saying, we're going to please everybody. We're not under that illusion at all. But we are going to try to be very intentional and creative to engage people where they are. Recognize it. Instead of trying to change people, we're going to try to figure out how we can come alongside those that are in different stages or different places. And so that's quite a challenge in front of us, but something we're ready to tackle and have already started looking at that. One of the ways to do that, we've kind of started, but we've got a long way to go. We really, really are going to put a lot of energy in this next year into, I know you're like, how are you going to do that more? There's a lot we can do in terms of leveraging technology. We're going to really try to look at some other ways to engage with folks digitally. In fact, two of the ways that we're going to be doing that is a new website and also a new, we're looking at different ways to connect through the Church Center app and some other ways we can make things simpler, easier. And so those are just a couple practical examples. And then the last, I keep saying last, this really is. It was for real this time. Because I'm looking at the time and I'm like, I got to get to this so that Bruce can get up here. Okay, so let me talk about discipleship because this is so important, and evangelism. I want to put those two together for a minute because this is the heartbeat of our church. And as we look ahead, this is the vision that this whole new ministry model, I told you that we're going to decentralize ministry. Now that's a mouthful, but I'm going to explain that, okay? I'm addressing that whole come to us mentality, that all of ministry happens on the campus, that all of our ministry happens in the walls of the church. We have got to break that mentality. We've got to get creative. And so there's two ways we're going to do that. I mentioned leveraging technology. The other way we're going to do that is there's an emphasis that we're going to have for this whole next year. We've never done this before. We're really excited about doing this. But we are, and this isn't original with us, so I just want to be transparent. You'd be like, I've heard that. This is not something we created, okay, so let me be real careful. But we are going to commit to a campaign called Who's Your One? Who's Your One? And the whole idea behind that, this was created by the North American Mission Board, and the whole emphasis behind Who's Your One is that you've got one person that does not know Jesus, that you are committed to praying for, investing in, discipling, reaching, leading them, and you're committed to do that for an entire year. I mean, obviously beyond, but we want to commit as a church. If every church member committed to this, we would explode in growth, and not just physically on campus. And that's what I mean by a new ministry model. Because in the past, we've said this backwards. We've said, we need to invite and invest, right? No, sorry, I flipped it. We've always said invest and invite. And so the idea was, coworker, somebody that you're in close contact with, invest in them and then invite them to church, right? Invite them to get plugged into a small group, invite them into discipleship. But with a new model, we're flipping that. And the design behind Who's Your One is to invite and invest. And the reason I flip that is because you're inviting them into relationship with you, not the church. You as a member of the church, as a representative of the body of Christ, as a disciple, as a Christ follower, you're inviting them into relationship with you, not the church. It's not a come to us mentality. You are inviting them, and then you're investing in them. You're pouring into them. You're having them over for a meal. You're, and I know with everything going on, that may be trickier. Maybe you got to figure that out. But whatever ministry looks like, that's your mission. That is your focus. And our job, and this is biblical, our job is to equip the saints for ministry. Our job is to help train you in evangelism and how to share your faith, and how to reach them and equip you with discipleship tools. And so over this next year, that's what we want to do. Who's your one? 2021. That's our vision. That's it. That's our discipleship focus, our evangelism focus, and we want to leverage technology in that, and we want to equip the church to be the church. That's our heart. In a time where things are uncertain, we want to live out our faith and be the church outside these walls. And so that's the heart of what we're asking God to do. And so this year's been hard, but Mary and Joseph, as we're looking at the Christmas story, they remind us that following Jesus is messy. It's not beautiful. It's a beautiful mess. Let me say it that way. Like it's inconvenient. It's sacrificial. And so this is so important because over this time as we've regrouped, many in the church have said, well, I'm just not ready, or I'm not sure how I can be involved, or I don't know what to do. We're calling the church to be the church. And our hope is that as you pray about this, you will realize, hey, this is going to be hard. This is going to be inconvenient, but it is going to be worth it. And we want to live out our faith in a way that makes an impact. And that means we still do need volunteers on campus. Bruce is going to be sharing about some of our leadership teams. But there's so many needs that we still have. And our hope is that as you pray about this, as you think through this, that you'll still continue to join us in doing that, but also that you'll find your place. And I know not every ministry is for everybody. I know that. That's not what I'm saying. But it does take the church to be the church, if that makes sense. And so that's our prayer and our hope. And so now that I've eaten up all of our time, I'm going to invite Bruce up to call us into business. Thank you so much, guys. We're excited about this new year. So.
All right, there we go. All right, now, how many do we have online, by the way? 18, okay. All right, so I think I know everybody in the room here, but just for the people online, I'm Bruce Barber. I'm the chairman of deacons, and one of my privileges is to get to lead us into the business meeting. But before we do that, I wanted to spend a couple minutes, even though Ian's eating up all of our time, but you guys be gracious. I wanted to talk a minute about why we have a business meeting. This may be obvious to everybody, but I think it's important for us, once in a while to step back and understand why we do the things we do. One of the other privileges I have is to share at starting point with our people that are prospective new members coming to learn about the church, and we're sharing with them. One of the things I get to share with them is three things. The main thing I get to share is who we are, what we believe, and how we operate or carry out the mission that God has given us. And so in that, particularly in the operating and carrying out the mission, we share that we're a pastor-led church. But we have core leadership teams, that being the servant lead team, the financial ministry team, and the personnel ministry team that help the staff carry out the leadership of the church. But we have a congregational polity, or in our Constitution and bylaws, it says that the final authority rests with the body of believers that are members of this church. Now, all three of these, pastor-led, core leadership team-led, or congregational, is all under the lordship of Christ, and it's all to seek the mind of Christ. But it's the different ways we do that. But the final authority we come to for the big things is the church body. And we do that in a business meeting. That's why we do this at least once a year. Sometimes we come together other times of the year to call a staff member, or there could be something that comes up that we need to do that. But we want to hear from you. You want to hear from us, and we want to hear from you as well. And so that comes out of, well, where does that come from? That comes out of what we believe. As one of the things I share of what we believe is God's word. We believe the Bible is God's word, that it's inerrant, and it's the final authority for conducting our own lives, and the final authority for us conducting church. And we believe that church, the Bible doesn't specifically say that the church should have a congregational polity, and there's other churches that have different ways of governing themselves. But we believe the principles are there, and it comes out of the idea that as Baptists, we believe that we are, there's a soul freedom. We can each go to God ourselves and interact with him. We don't have to go through a priest. We don't have to go through the Pope or something like that. Other churches believe differently. And an extension of that is that the church can do that. The church can operate autonomously, and our church does operate autonomously. Again, under the lordship of Christ, we exercise democratic principles, voting, consensus, things like that, to determine a path forward. And so, again, the final authority is the body of believers here at Emmanuel, and that's why we gather the body of believers and have a business meeting once in a while to look at the big things. And there's three big things we typically bring to the body. That's changes to our bylaws, that's a budget, we're going to do that tonight, and it's leadership. It's nominating people to be a deacon or to be on the servant lead team, and we're going to talk about those things tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and, if somebody will make a motion to call us into business, I'll accept that. All right, I have a motion, and we're actually, okay, in a second, okay. All right. So we're in the business meeting now, and I want to go ahead and Brian is going to come share our budget with us, but I want to go ahead and have that a motion to accept the budget that's proposed by the financial ministry team in a second, so that we can open the floor for discussion while Brian's coming and sharing that with us. So if somebody would you've seen the budget, if somebody would make a motion for us to accept the budget that the financial ministry team has proposed. Okay, all right, and then a second? Okay, all right. So the motion to accept the budget that the financial ministry team has put together is on the floor for discussion and questions, and Brian is going to come share the details with us, and you can ask questions as we go along. Thank you, sir. All right.
Hey guys, it's that time of year again. Yay! Well, what I want to start with, for those at home, if you're new to me and I'm new to you, my name is Brian Spicer. I gladly serve as your church administrator, handling the ins and outs, the finances, the day-to-day of what you so earnestly give to the church for the greater vision of connecting people to a relationship with Jesus. So as we're looking over the budget, I just want to start with saying that numbers tell a really awesome story. Just like Ian said, ministry didn't happen. Ministry looked a little different. Ministry got a little shade, like kind of scary. We don't know what's going on, but we pulled it together. I love the message this morning, and something of what Michael said this morning with the all-in or the annual Christmas offering, that it takes the church body. It takes all of us pulling on our resources together, and our resources just isn't our money. I know that we're talking about financial dollars here on this paper, but it also is your talent. It's your treasure. Many of you sitting in this room, I think all of you sit in this room, serve in multiple capacities on many teams, because it takes the church. It takes all of us doing what God's called us to do to be the church in our community here at EBC. So I will start by just going through the budget. The first section of the budget you see is projected totals for 2020. This is where I work with the ministers to kind of find out where they're going to end in their ministry areas at the end of the year. And of course, what you need to know about our budget is we do not spend more than what we bring in. So we do stick to and adhere to the Dave Ramsey financial principles of really monitoring and managing, evaluating our budget to make sure that I'm approving dollars that are spent, approving dollars from the ministry leaders when they tell me every couple of months that, hey, I want to spend this. Do we have margin for that? So we do a really, really good job as a team to really monitor what's spent in the budget. So the first column, you'll see where we're projected to end in revenues at $1,004,381, and then we're projected to spend, our total expenditures down there is $958,050. So we'll have a surplus of about $46,331, which is great. Of course, that could look different if y'all get crazy in the next 2 weeks, staff members, of spending some money. So the next column, you'll see there's our approved budget for 2020. So if you have looked to see that some of these numbers probably did flip. We might have spent more in one area than we said we were going to, because again, ministry looked really different. We had to shift some of our ministry model from in the walls of the church to going more digital. So then the last item of the proposed budget, or the last item is going to be a proposed budget for 2021. What you need to know, many of you have been in these meetings before, is we like to adhere to a faith-based budget. What that means is we look at our trends of giving each year, and each year our giving has substantially gone up, which is a praise. It shows growth. It shows some spiritual maturity of using your resources to then give more, so that the church can do more, to be more of an impact to our community, to our children, our families, our marriage ministry, whatever that looks like. This year, we wanted to propose and put before you a realistic budget, a budget that really mirrors kind of where we're landing, with giving just a little of room because we know God can definitely posture hearts. God continues, like Ian said, to bring new families to Emmanuel, and connecting families to Emmanuel that are not only giving but serving. So we want to give God margin and room to grow within our body, and to not doubt that, the sky's the limit when we can really just, again, pull together our resources and support the vision and mission of God's church. So each line item, as I go down, you'll see mission expense. We are proposing an $87,430 line item there. That directly reflects to cooperative giving. That's 6.5% of what you give, the church gives. Just like Ian says, money comes in, it goes right back out to cooperative giving. And then the 3.5% is spread up into our other local and global partners that we support. So that line item, we want to spend all that. We want to spend more. So as you give more, the church gives more. You'll look at salaries and benefits. Is $563,488. That number right there does give us some room. We have some staff transitions that we're still trying to think through and posture ourselves for next year on what a new staff member will look like next year, if we choose to go that route, which I'm sure we will. But of course, there's a lot of discussions around that. The next is our staff development line item. We have our worship ministry. We have our preschool. So really, as you just look down the budget, it really, does anybody have any questions or any concerns about the budget? Anybody online? Okay. Well, I will highlight, you'll see 406. We have a question. Yes, ma'am, Miss Diane.
Yes, under 406 designated ministries.
I was about to talk about that. All right. Yes. So Dr. Hudson has asked about 406, the line item in the budget. You'll see in 2020 there was nothing spent. There was nothing approved. However, we're asking for $13,000. So that line item, we shifted some ministries out of missions, which is like the Emerald Coast Orphan Care. They kind of, what money is budgeted for Emerald Coast Orphan Care went into that line item because the mission team doesn't give input on telling them how they spend their money. There's a team, Audra Rogers and Ashley Pape, that they make decisions on spending what's budgeted. The women's ministry is going to go there. So the women's lead team, they make decisions on events they're going to do during the year. Missions team shouldn't have any input in that. So military ministry is a new ministry of the church that we are supporting. That's there in designated ministries. Marriage ministry is there. That was moved from small groups. So we wanted to shift and make some changes from the finance team on moving some things where it made more sense on where they are located and where dollars are spent and budgeted. So that's what that is. Does that answer that? We're good? Okay. We would have had a problem if I said that was my new car for next year, but it's not. It's a very small car. All right, Ashley McCollum has a question.
So can you give us a general idea of where the extra revenue goes when we have that, like in this year?
The extra revenue, it just goes into our bank account. So we do have, that's a good question. We do have some needs of the church that you may not know about that we're facilitating. There are 2 air units on the hangar that need to be replaced. They're the last of the ancient 10-ton units that Dave Gaylord loves to scrub those coils to get them burning in the winter. They're $19,000 to replace the last 2. So our common area, we have done everything we can to Band-Aid the common area because you'll see paints chipping. We want to take care of our facilities. The bid came in with that, and I can't remember exactly what, it was over $10,000. That was $19,000. So we're going to put a pin in that one. Definitely consider doing the air units, but yeah, there are some things. The roof needs repair because we're getting leaks in my office and Michael's office. It's wonderful. Greg, are you getting leaks or do you have a question? Oh, I'm so sorry. Ashley McCollum asked the surplus in the budget, the $46,331. Where does that go? So. Does it help to answer that? So it just goes back into the general fund. All right. Any other questions? Okay, Bruce, I think that's my time. Oh, well, no, it's not. I have more to say. Okay, well, I did want to share some more wins and just some more things that you might not really care about, but I do. So one thing that really struck me, we have a church health report. And so one of the biggest things about giving is because we met digitally, because we weren't physically in the building, there's a big missed opportunity of passing the plate. There's a big missed opportunity of presenting that offering moment. And you guys really, you kept giving, which is great. So what I want to say is our digital giving, which I've always had a goal in my heart to be above 50%, because when you give digitally, it doesn't stop. You can do it on vacation. You can do that when you're sick at home. Like your giving doesn't have to stop because we still have to pay bills. You know, the lights still need to be paid for. The trash still needs to be picked up. So our digital presence is 65%, which is great. So I would love to see that a lot higher, but I know a lot of you still like writing checks, Ms. Doris. We love it. Love it. So we will still accept checks. But it is just great that, like Ian said, with the adaptation of digital technology, that a lot of you made that switch and made that change, and we're so thankful for that because it's less work on the staff, it's less processing for us, it's just easier. So takeaways on the budget. With this $1 million, $12,246,000 budget, each week we need to bring in, and we need for you to give around $19,000. And what does that look like? Now, I know each family household, when we talk about households, it could be a couple, it could be a single, it's whatever that household is, giving $389 a month. Now, some of you give more, some of you, $389 is where we would need to be to meet that budget. And that's very doable. So I would just encourage you and just say that this isn't a time of asking you for more money. It's just thanking you for being the church and for not giving up and for supporting EBC and supporting the vision and mission of really what Ian's leading us to do, which is choose your one. Who's your one? So that's all I have. Chris Clyde has a question. Yes. Chris wants to know what is the balance of, I'm on it. Chris wants to know about our debt retirement and where are we. If someone would like to write a check for $621,000, we'll be debt free. So we are currently at $621,000. So Brian Chrisman said he's going to write a check. Put that in the notes, in the minutes. All right. The check needs to clear. The check needs to clear. It needs to be legit. So but $621,000 was the last loan balance that I received from the bank. So, yeah, we're doing good. We'll be debt free soon. 5 years. It's within the window. I don't think so. I'm going to turn it over to Bruce Barber.
And I realize that Brian and I use the same microphone. We don't do this at home. Make sure you use a different microphone. Yeah. during COVID time. I trust Brian. I know Brian's good. Okay, are there any other questions on the budget? The floor is open. I think you've asked all your questions, but just want to give one last chance, or online if there any other questions. Okay. All right. Can I get a call for the question on the proposal to accept the budget that the finance ministry team is proposing? Can I get a call for it? Okay. Can I get a second on that? Okay. Okay. So I have a call for the question on accepting the budget that the finance ministry team has proposed. I have a second on that. All in favor signify with an aye. Aye. Okay. And online with the ayes. And then any opposed signify with a no. Do we have anything online? Okay, all right, we're good. Okay, so the budget passes, and you can see the budget that we'll adopt for the coming year. And I just want to thank you, again for your generosity. We're going to talk about leadership now, and the leadership, had to deal with a lot of things this year. But one of the things we didn't have to do with was budget issues, and what a blessing to not have, because a lot of organizations were dealing with severe budget issues this year, and so I want to thank you also for that. Now, I don't know if I said earlier, the third thing we would deal with, we don't have any bylaw situations to talk to tonight. So the other area we want to talk about is leadership, and it's primarily in the way of informing you. I don't know if we can pull up. I mentioned we have the three leadership teams that are core leadership teams. The first is the servant lead team. Oop, there they are. Okay. And you can see the servant lead team here. Now, we can, there are two members of the servant lead team. They're standing positions that are associated with a position in the church. Like I'm the chairman of deacons, so I'm on the servant lead team. Scott Hudson is the chairman of the personnel ministry team, so he's on the team. And then there are non-standing members. And typically what we've done is the non-standing members have been people that have been in standing positions, and we've kept them on for continuity, for experience, and things like that. But there is the bylaws do call for a process to nominate people from the body. And so we want to work on that process this year and give you the opportunity to nominate people. So, as we want to hear your voice, and we want you to be able to exercise your responsibility for the leadership in the church. But we're still working on that process. But I want you to be praying about people that you would want to nominate as a non-standing member of our servant lead team. Again, that needs to be prayed about. Again, this is all under the lordship of Christ. It needs to be, the more of a consensus there is around a person, obviously the more that speaks to the servant lead team. And once those are nominated, they become available for the pastor, the servant lead team, the deacons to consider and come back with a proposal of a person for you to vote on to be a member of the servant lead team. So again, just keeping making sure we serve the body as the leadership here. We serve the body, and we're accountable to you, and we want to to be transparent in that. And in that vein, I also want to show a couple of other teams. Now, these are teams that would be formed out of the servant lead team, but I want you to be aware of them. The finance team. This is your finance team. Craig Overly, Eduardo's here tonight, and Karen here, and Randy, and then Brian's here, obviously. And so they put together the budget for this year, and they'll carry on into the new year to execute that budget and make sure that our commitment is not to spend more money than we're taking in. So if things change, we'll certainly adjust to that. If we end up with money, more than what we planned for, we'll faithfully try to use that to take care of things that we feel like the church, and more importantly, that the Lord would want us to do. And then the personnel team, Scott Hudson is here tonight. And you see the other names on there. I did want to mention Jeff Barber is going to be staying on the personnel team, but he is going to be stepping back from a couple of leadership roles this year just to work on some, to focus on some other things. So he's not going to be on the servant lead team, and he's not going to be, we'll show the deacons also if you want to show that. Okay, he's not going to be the vice chairman of deacons this year, so I just want to make you aware of that. And the deacons will be working, on how to address that situation as we move into the new year. But these year deacons, and again, there's not really any business for us to take care of tonight. In the future, we could possibly bring back a nomination for somebody to be on the servant lead team. But just want to make you aware of who is exercising leadership and working the day-to-day and month-to-month things as far as carrying out the budget and the work of the church. And while we're talking about leadership, I'll turn straight here, I guess. While we're talking about leadership, I just want to reemphasize that these are our core leadership teams. That leadership goes way beyond that. And Ian's challenging us. We've got some more time to get through the heart of this COVID, and maybe get some things back to normal. And to do that, and to be able to get back to some things back to normal, we're going to need a lot of people to step up in leadership and to help us to. Carry out the things that it takes to get things back, worship back to something more normal, or building our community back to something more normal, and serving. But as Ian said tonight, there's going to be things that are not ever going to go back the way they were. And so that requires people, God will give people to step up and lead in other ways, to address, those new kinds of situations and the new opportunities that God presents to us. And so there's a real challenge for us as we move forward into 21 is to continue to try to faithfully minister in ways that we have before, and to step up and try to minister in new ways as well. And I just want to thank you for in advance for thank you for being here tonight and being online, and thank you in advance for your willingness to step up and help us as we carry that out. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Ian to close us in prayer. Well, actually, I need to have a motion for us to close the business meeting. Okay, and the second? Okay, all right. I guess if there's not any other business, we'll close out the business meeting tonight, and I'll hand it back over to you.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, this time I'm going to invite Kyle up here. But here's how we wanted to close. Again, thank you so much for committing to be here. But there's just a song that really reflects our heart and our prayer for this coming year, for 2021. We're in a series right now called Kingdom Come, and the heart of that is just the reality that we live in the now and the not yet kingdom of God. And there's great encouragement in that. There's hope in that. There's motivation in that to move expectantly, to serve God with our whole heart, to look for the ways that we can get involved in the work that He's doing. And so that's really going to be our vision for this whole next year, is for Kingdom Come 2021. We're praying for God's kingdom, for heaven to come and move on earth through God's church, through His people. And so I just want you to hear the lyrics of this. It's a song by Wren Collective, and it's called Our Prayer. And we want this literally to be our prayer for this next year. And here's the lyrics. Let blessings flow again where fear too long has reigned. Lord, let the church bells ring from here to the nations, on earth as it is in heaven. Lord, our prayer will ever be, your kingdom come. Restore the mighty name of Christ the Son. Let prodigals return to raise your song. Our God has no rival. Our prayer is revival. Lord, hear the cry of saints, of those who yearn and wait. Come meet us in this place. We pray for the nations. We cry to the heavens. Our God has no rival. Our prayer is revival. And so we're praying for 2021 for God's kingdom to come, just on earth as it is in heaven. And so we wanted to close in worship, and then I'll come back and close us in prayer. So let's worship together.
Let blessings flow again where fear too long has reigned. Lord, let the church bells ring from here to the nations, on earth as in heaven. Lord, our prayer will ever be, your kingdom come, restore the mighty name of Christ the Son. Let prodigals return to raise your song. Our God has no rival. Our prayer is revival. Lord, hear the cry of saints, of those who yearn and wait. Come meet us in this place. We pray for the nations, and we cry to the heavens. Lord, our prayer will ever be, your kingdom come, restore the mighty name of Christ the Son. Let prodigals return to raise your song. Our God has no rival. Our prayer is revival. Prayer is the weapon here in the fight. Our prayer is the weapon that scatters the night. Your victory's coming, it can't be denied. You are reigning sovereign. Our prayer is the weapon here in the fight. Our prayer is the weapon that scatters the night. Your victory's coming, it can't be denied. You are reigning sovereign. Lord, our prayer will ever be, your kingdom come, restore the mighty name of Christ the Son. Let prodigals return to raise your song. Our God has no rival. Our prayer is revival. Our God has no rival. Our prayer is revival.
The promise that we have is that COVID's not going to stop the church. It's not going to stop our faithful God from moving. We know that. We believe that. We're thankful to be God's people, and we're praying for his kingdom to come all over this next year as we commit to follow him, to trust him. And there's some prayer points that I'll send out to you guys, but just for the sake of time, I want to close with how Jesus taught us to pray. And we find this, one of the places we find this in Scripture is in Matthew chapter 6. Pray then like this. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. We're praying for your kingdom to come and your will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Again, thank you so much for your commitment to be here tonight. We are excited about how God's going to move in the days to come. And we hope to just keep you updated and let you know more about some of the changes that are coming. Be blessed tonight. Thank you so much.